Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Joe Miniacci. I'm the Region Administrator for the FAA Central Region right here in Kansas City. We're very pleased that you're able to join us today for our virtual public information workshop on the arrival procedures at the Kansas City International Airport. The FAA is in the process of modernizing the national airspace system with the use of satellite-based navigation as our primary method of directing air traffic. Now, this is going to be replacing the conventional system that also includes ground-based navigational aids. So why am I telling you this? Well, the satellite-based procedures are extremely precise. This gives controllers and pilots greater situational awareness, which enhances the already safest airspace system in the world. But it also allows for enhanced route planning. And that's where you come in, actually, because with enhanced route planning, passengers will see reduced delays at times of departure, no more long lines, and reduced flying times to their destination. An added benefit from the reduced flying time is reduced fuel burn, and that means a reduction in carbon emissions, which I know we are all interested in. So what we're going to do today is walk you through how this new system works. We're going to compare it to the one being replaced, and we're going to explain how the flight path and flight experience is going to be different. We're going to focus on the arrival procedures in the airspace around Kansas City and what you might expect as these new procedures are introduced. Okay, we're just ready to show you a couple of videos, and I think you'll find these videos very interesting and informative. After the videos, we're going to be going to a live Q&A panel with representatives from the FAA along with our industry partners to answer any of the questions you may have about the operations of the arrivals going into Kansas City, which you're going to be learning about. I want to thank the panelists for being here to share their perspective as part of this meeting today, but also I want to thank you very much for joining us today. I think you'll find it informative.
Kansas City is at the heart of the nation, and soon visitors will have an easier time getting there. The FAA is amending and adding satellite-based air traffic procedures that will help travelers arrive and depart more efficiently than ever before. As part of a nationwide program, the FAA is updating arrival and departure flight procedures in order to better connect Kansas City with airports nationwide. This project is part of the FAA's nationwide strategy to modernize the entire national airspace system and meet the future demand at busy airports. Throughout the nation, the FAA has built a system that allows controllers to manage the safe and efficient flow of aircraft between airports. In the past, aircraft have flown point to point by passing over ground-based navigational aids. Many of these ground-based aids are now old, inefficient, and costly to maintain. The FAA is replacing them with satellite-based procedures. These new procedures allow pilots and controllers to use more direct routes, which can help the environment by reducing fuel burn, and are safer and more predictable paths that reduce workload for flight crews and air traffic controllers. More direct routes also reduce delays. Satellite-based procedures have been implemented in airports across the nation, including Kansas City. The retirement of 5 ground-based navigational aids means that Kansas City will implement satellite-based procedures starting in mid-2022. These paths will give pilots a more seamless approach into the airport. How does air traffic control work at Kansas City? Kansas City has 3 runways. There are 2 runways oriented from north to south, which are parallel to each other. The 3rd runway is a crosswind runway, running from east to west. Aircraft take off and land into the wind, and runways are built to align with historic wind patterns specific to each airport. At Kansas City, the prevailing winds are generally from the south, so aircraft take off and land to the south, which is called south flow. However, Winds can come from the north or even the west, which will change the direction in which aircraft take off and land. General runway identification is based on the compass heading the aircraft is facing as it lands or takes off. For example, runway 927 is facing approximately 90 degrees in one direction and 270 degrees in the opposite direction. If you drop the 0 at the end of the compass heading, you will get 927. Even though a runway is a single strip of concrete, it is essentially treated as two separate surfaces. Parallel runways are further designated with L for left or R for right at the end of the runway number, which explains runways 1 right, 19 left, and 1 left, 19 right. Air traffic controllers work in three-dimensional space to keep planes safely separated horizontally and vertically. They continually space and separate arrivals and departures. Satellite-based procedures make that job safer and more efficient because the separation requirements can now be incorporated within the procedure, including speed and altitude and points along the route. These new arrival procedures are designed to be used by all runways. Why does Kansas City need these procedures? Passengers flying to and from Kansas City want to travel easily from other parts of the country. Satellite-based air traffic procedures will help Kansas City better connect with other larger airports, including Chicago, Denver, Minneapolis, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and New York. One of the new procedures is called Optimized Profile Descents, or OPDs, which will allow aircraft to glide to the ground, eliminating powering up motions. The OPD has built-in speed and altitude requirements, which are programmed into the airplane's flight computers and allow the aircraft to essentially glide down on idle power. It's like driving a car from a highway to an exit ramp and then a neighborhood street, but seamlessly and without stopping. Placing an aircraft on a continuous and predictable path separates it from all other aircraft in the area. This kind of path is the safest and most efficient possible route. The new arrival procedures will take effect once aircraft have started descent from the cruise portion of the flight. They will provide stabilized descents, remove level-offs, and allow for near-idle approaches while keeping aircraft higher in the air as long as possible. Jet aircraft will follow the same general flight paths used today from the beginning of the descent to between 4,000 and 7,000 feet in altitude, depending on the runways in use. Speed and/or altitude assignments are built into the procedure instead of air traffic controllers issuing compass headings called vectors to separate arriving aircraft. Creating and publishing new flight procedures is a multi-step process. The FAA begins with a specific need, benefit, and purpose. A team of air traffic professionals, operators, airports, and other aviation stakeholders contribute to the design of a procedure. We hope this video gives you a basic understanding of how the air traffic control system works in the Kansas City airspace, and including how and why the FAA is modernizing air traffic procedures. For more information about this project, please visit the FAA's Community Involvement website at faa.gov.
Hello, my name is Marissa McQueen, and I'm an Air Traffic Control Support Specialist at the FAA's Kansas City International Airport Traffic Control Tower, or ATCT. I've been actively involved in air traffic within the Kansas City airspace for the last 12 years. Today, I will walk you through the poster boards for the arrival procedures at Kansas City. Each of the following boards shows a sampling of proposed approach procedures as well as existing flight tracks. Each board will show either arrival aircraft with current day tracks color-coded by altitude for the close-in view, or all blue flight tracks for the distant, zoomed-out view. The flight tracks and procedures are all overlaid on a map of our surrounding Kansas City area. Each flight procedure board is oriented with north facing up. The name of the flight procedure is on the top of the board. For example, this board shows 4 arrivals: the Jason, Rudd, Wu-Tang, and Mahomes. These are called STARS, or Standard Terminal Arrival Routes. A few acronyms are used by air traffic controllers explaining the boards and are defined in the text. The spelling of each arrival procedure is limited to 5 letters only. For example, the spelling of Rudd, R-U-D-D-H, is pronounced Rudd. The stars on the board are locations of waypoints, which are fixed navigational points in space that the aircraft fly to. Just as with the spelling of the procedures, waypoints are spelled with 5 letters. For example, the F-A-K-I-R waypoint would be pronounced Faker. The proposed arrival flight procedures are colored orange. Surrounding the paths are dispersed path areas in yellow. These areas show the possible locations where aircraft may fly and account for the possibility of different routing to avoid hazardous weather, for operational need, or for safety. When aircraft fly in these areas, it is typically due to a pilot receiving a compass heading from air traffic control. A compass heading is a vector assigned to an aircraft by an air traffic controller at the Kansas City International TRACON, which TRACON is our Terminal Radar Approach Control, or the Kansas City Airport Tower. The proposed arrival procedures will use satellites for guidance instead of ground-based navigational aids. The FAA is retiring some older, inefficient navigational aids as part of its VOR MON project, which stands for VOR Minimum Operational Network. This is being done throughout the entire country. The bullet points on the right side provide additional details about the procedures. Next, we'll take a look at each arrival board. So this is the runway 1 left, 1 right, zoomed out. This board shows a zoomed out view of the existing flight tracks and proposed stars for aircraft landing to the north on runways 1 left and 1 right. Aircraft landing to the north will join one of these 4 stars depending on the direction they're coming from. Once on the star, controllers may either give the pilot a vector to the final approach or fly the entire procedure and would be issued the RNAV approach. An RNAV procedure uses satellite navigation to provide a precise flight path. Arrivals may be vectored off the procedure for operational need, safety, or for hazardous weather. Aircraft that are vectored are given a different heading to fly than the published procedures. However, controllers would use these arrivals as published whenever air traffic conditions allow. This is the runway 1 left, 1 right zoomed in. This board shows a zoomed in view of the existing flight tracks and proposed stars for aircraft landing to the north on runways 1 left and 1 right. This view shows how the star in orange connects to the required performance navigation, or RNP approach, which is in teal. The RNP approach also uses satellites for navigation and provides pilots precise guidance for landing. Aircraft landing at Kansas City that have authorized equipment on board already use these RNP approach procedures. The graphic in the lower left-hand corner shows the existing color-coded radar track legend. This is the runway 19 left, 19 right zoomed out board. This board shows the zoomed out view of the existing flight tracks and proposed stars for aircraft landing to the south on runways 19 left and 19 right. Aircraft landing to the south will join one of these 4 stars, depending on the direction they're coming from. Once on the star, controllers once again may either give the pilot a vector to the final approach or fly the entire procedure and would be issued the RNAV approach. Arrivals may be vectored off the procedure for operational need, safety, or hazardous weather. Aircraft that are vectored are given a different heading to fly than the published procedure. However, controllers would use these arrivals as published whenever air traffic conditions allow. This is the runway 19 left, runway 19 right, zoomed in. This board shows the zoomed in view of the existing flight tracks and proposed stars for aircraft landing to the south on runways 19 left and 19 right at Kansas City. This view shows how the star in orange connects to the required performance navigation, or RMP approach, in teal. The approach also uses satellites for navigation and provides pilots precise guidance for landing. Aircraft landing at Kansas City that have authorized equipment on board already use these RMP approach procedures. The graphic in the lower left-hand corner shows the existing color-coded radar tracks legend. Runway 9 zoomed out board. This board shows the zoomed out view of the existing flight tracks and proposed stars for aircraft landing to the east on runway 9. At Kansas City, aircraft use runway 9 when winds come from the east. It is used much less frequently than the north-south parallel runways. Aircraft landing to the east will join one of these 4 stars depending on the direction they're coming from. Aircraft coming from the northeast or southeast will join the star, fly parallel to the runway, then make a U-turn to join the final approach. Once on the star, controllers may either give the pilot a vector to the final approach or fly the entire procedure and would be issued the RNAV approach. Once again, arrivals may be vectored off the procedure for operational need, safety, or for hazardous weather. Aircraft that are vectored are given a different heading to fly than the published procedure. However, controllers would use these arrivals as published whenever air traffic conditions allow. This is the runway 9 zoomed in board. This board shows a zoomed in view of the existing flight tracks and proposed stars for aircraft landing to the east on runway 9. This view shows how the star, in orange, connects to the required performance navigation, or RNP approach, which is in teal. The approach also uses satellites for navigation and provides pilots precise guidance for landing. Aircraft landing at Kansas City that have authorized equipment on board already use these RMP approach procedures. The graphic in the lower left-hand corner shows the existing color-coded radar tracks legend. This is the runway 27 zoomed out board. This board shows a zoomed out view of the existing flight tracks and proposed stars for aircraft landing to the west on runway 27. At Kansas City, aircraft use runway 27 when winds come from the west. It is used much less frequently than the north-south parallel runways. Aircraft landing to the west will join one of the 4 stars depending on the direction they're coming from. Aircraft coming from the northwest or southwest will join the star, fly parallel to the runway, then make a U-turn to join the final approach. Once on the star, controllers may either give the pilot compass headings, called a vector, to the final approach, or they'll fly the entire procedure and would be issued the RNAV approach. Arrivals may be vectored off the procedure for operational need, safety, or for hazardous weather. Aircraft that are vectored are given a different heading to fly than the published procedure. However, controllers would use these arrivals as published whenever air traffic conditions allow. Finally, this is the runway 27 zoomed in board. This board shows a zoomed in view of the existing flight tracks and proposed stars for aircraft landing to the west on runway 27. This view shows how the star, in orange, connects to the required performance navigation, or RMP approach, in teal. The approach also uses satellites for navigation and provides pilots precise guidance for landing. Aircraft landing at Kansas City that have authorized equipment on board already use these RMP approaches. The graphic in the lower left-hand corner shows the existing color-coded radar tracks legend. If you'd like to find out more information about Kansas City's arrival procedures, please visit our website.
Well, hello again. This is Joe Miniacci. I'm the Region Administrator for the FAA Central Region, for those of you who are just joining us. Thank you for participating in our virtual public workshop. I'm going to moderate this community workshop panel now. So let me go over a couple of procedures first. We have about 60 minutes for our workshop. If anybody has any technical issues, we have a number for you to text which is 949-478-0253. Now, that is a text number. Now, we're also live streaming on the FAA's Facebook Live and FAA YouTube channel. Yes, we do have a YouTube channel, and you're going to be able to go back to that afterwards because this is being recorded. I'd like to introduce our panelists before we start. I'm going to introduce the manager of the Kansas City International Airport Terminal Approach Control, whose name is Ryan Grum. And then we have the air traffic control specialist from the Kansas City International Airport, also Casey Hovis. And you saw Marissa McQueen on the video. She's a staff specialist at the International Airport at the tower, and she's going to be with us as well. Bill Brewer, environmental protection specialist at the Central Service Area. We have a pilot from Southwest Airlines, Trey Turner, also joining us, and the deputy director of the Kansas City Aviation Department, Ian Redhead. So I think we're ready to start our session, and we'll get going here with our very first question. Okay, let's see. First question. How do aircraft use satellite procedures to navigate, and how is that different from the ground navigation? I'm going to ask Ryan to take that question to start with.
All right, thank you, Joe, and welcome everybody. Thanks for the question. I would ask that you think of this in terms of your own personal vehicle as it relates to the GPS technology that's located within that vehicle. In order for that technology to work correctly, you need what we would refer to as line of sight from your vehicle to a point for that technology to work. As you can imagine, if you think of it in that, what I call that horizontal plane, there's a multitude of reasons why that signal will be, disrupted or disconnected, whether it's because of, a building in the way, trees, what have you. There's a multitude of things that could disrupt that signal. Conversely, when you think of it in terms of a radar-based or a radar-based procedure like we're discussing here today, a lot of those interferences aren't really there because it's coming from a spot where a lot of the obstructions are not a factor for you. So that line of sight is clear at all times, and it really benefits everybody in that instance that the line of sight is available and open for use.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, thank you, Ryan. So we have another question in the video. This is a question in the video. It said that this is not part of the new terminal project. When will the new terminal be open? Well, that's an easy one for Ian, I think.
Sure, Joe. Thanks very much for inviting me to participate today. The new terminal and complex garages and so forth will be opened on the first quarter of 2023. 2023. Can't
wait.
First quarter.
Yeah, looking forward to it, right?
We all are.
That's right. So there's a question regarding environmental reviews. Is the FAA conducting an environmental review to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act? Bill, can you help us out with that one?
Thank you, Joe. Yes, the FAA, as part of the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as NEPA, reviewed potential environmental impacts associated with these proposed procedures. For this project, we completed a noise screen that showed no change in noise from the new procedures. We also evaluated numerous environmental categories called resources in our evaluation, such as air quality, environmental justice, and biological resources as examples.
Thank you very much. So this one's easy for Trey. Will these changes? How will these changes affect pilots? How you fly?
Thanks, Joe. The short answer is that these procedures won't affect how pilots fly. All of our crews are trained and qualified to fly these procedures, and they're flown for the most part, just like any of the instrument procedures that our crews experience on a daily basis throughout the national airspace system.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Bill, we have a follow-up question for you there. Can you elaborate on your noise study process?
Yes. We look at several factors during our noise study process. We factor in air traffic operations and fleet mix. We look at where the aircraft are currently flying, comparing to the new procedures or procedure change. We factor in runway usage as well as a few other factors. For this project, the noise screen does not show any noise impacts from these procedure changes.
Good. That's good to hear, Bill. So, another interesting question they're coming in. Will Class B airspace be part of this change? Casey?
Yeah, Joe, there's class above airspace will not change. It'll be the same lateral dimensions and altitude restrictions. So local pilots and controllers won't have to memorize any new airspace.
Yeah, Marissa, do you have anything to add about that? Or can you
No.
add to that? You got it?
No, Casey's absolutely right. Our airspace is going to remain the same, so no changes.
Good. Well, Marissa, can you help describe the process that will occur after these workshops?
Sure. Well, after the workshops, we're kind of putting the finishing touches on the arrivals, and we have a lot of training that we have to do here in our air traffic building, making sure that the air traffic controllers know what's happening and are up to date with the changes. We have flight inspections where we have a group out of Oklahoma City that's going to come in and actually fly in a plane to test the procedures and make sure they're safe. So we have a few more steps before we see the procedures published.
Okay. So if somebody does have an issue with noise, who do they contact? I'm going to give that to Ian.
Unfortunately, when it comes to noise issues, everybody would normally contact the airport around where they live, and that's not going to change. We still get it. What we do is we then work with the FAA, and we try and identify where the plane was based on the location of the person calling in, and we do our own separate investigation, and then we get back to the citizens or whoever made their complaint and try and advise them of what actually took place. You know, in some cases, it may be, as I think Marissa said in the video, pilots may be diverted because of weather or some other issues, and therefore that's sometimes when people will have complaints about, you know, noise or, you know, deviations over their house. In some cases, it's also because of construction on an airport.
Oh yeah, that's a fact. Yeah. So Marissa, there's a follow-up question for you too. When you say these procedures are safer, what does that mean? Is it safer for the passenger or the people on the ground? Can you elaborate, I guess? Right?
Sure, Joe. That's an excellent question. And the first thing that I would like to tell everyone is that we have the safest airspace in the world. Safety is our #1 priority. We want to make sure that everything we're doing is safe. And so the new procedures are not inherently more safe than what we're doing. They are a little bit more efficient and predictable. And I think that is what kind of increases the safety. It's that we're able to precisely and I believe a little bit more accurately pinpoint exactly where the aircraft are in the air and efficiently get them to where they need to be.
Thank you very much. Just as a reminder, I want to go right back to you again in a minute, Trey, but as a reminder to everybody, if you have any questions or want any follow-up information, you can type it into the Zoom Q&A. The panel is ready to answer any questions that you have. Trey, I'm going to go back to you on that previous question about the procedures being safer. Can you give us a little bit of a pilot's view of that?
Well, thank you, Joe. Sure, absolutely. I really, from our standpoint, all of the instrument procedures that we fly are safe. We do rely very heavily on the accuracy that they all provide, but the newer procedures, the new satellite-based procedures, are offering benefits and reliabilities that are just how we say different than the more conventional procedures. And we've been able to not only capture the safety benefits provided by the application of some of these either GPS or RMP procedures, but we've also noted how they've become more environmentally friendly in terms of noise and CO2 emission, fuel burn, and so forth. So there's definitely, from our standpoint, an added benefit to utilizing these procedures.
You could really tell the difference when you're flying as well. When you don't have that up and up and up and the down, down, down. It's really interesting. It's very noticeable. Let's just put it that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the way they're designed and the way that our software interprets the procedures, if you will, they do provide us, barring any airspace constraints or so forth, they do give us the opportunity to have more optimized profile descents, and even throughout the approach phase offer increased efficiencies. And it does, they are, from that standpoint, they are fun to fly and see them play out in their fullness. So
yeah, fun to ride too. So, Bill, we have some pretty informed folks out here. How do we continue to stay informed on what's happening with these procedures and the potential noise impacts? Bill, you take that for us?
The public workshops conducted today and tomorrow will be recorded for future viewing from our community engagement webpage, which can be found at faa.gov. Any updates to materials will be found on that website. Again, once the procedures are implemented, you can contact Kansas City Airport with your noise concerns or the FAA noise portal, which we have mentioned a few times.
Yeah, we have. All right. So we talked about the new terminal, and with these new procedures, are they going to lead to increased traffic at Kansas City International? So that's a question for a lot of you, I think. Let me start with Casey.
Yeah, sure, Joe. Just like the procedures today, we can handle pretty much any volume of traffic. It's not designed specifically for increasing the traffic into Kansas City area, but if the new terminal does, increase the traffic, we'll be ready with the new procedures or the old procedures.
Okay, good. Well, good. Ian, what do you think?
As was just stated, the new procedures won't increase the amount of aircraft flying in and out of Kansas City. We hope the new facility will encourage the airlines who are flying in and out of this airport to increase the amount of flights they have in and out, because it will be a lot easier to use our facility than what we currently have. It's easier for people to change gates and so forth. And therefore, we would encourage all of the airlines that are here to look at other markets and increase the amount of flights that they offer to our citizens and passengers and in and out of Kansas City.
Trey, you can put a good word in for Kansas City, right?
Of course.
So.
Well, yeah, from our standpoint, it really doesn't, that's more of a different department's function as far as, additional or reductions in flights are concerned. But from the flight deck point of view, these procedures do offer us the ability to essentially get on the ground quicker and out of the airspace.
Very good. Thank you very much.
So Joe, I think as Casey says, we're not changing the runways or anything at the airport. The modernization program is actually for the terminal and access routes and the garages.
Right.
So the actual runways and so forth are not changing. This is just the navigational points that are being used, and it's making the use of the airspace more efficient. We have a lot of capacity in terms of the airspace in and around the airport. And you guys are just trying to make sure that you're using it a lot more effectively and making sure that the airlines are able to get in and out a lot easier. And in effect, I think what you'll actually see is a reduction in the overall noise levels because of the different approaches.
Good. And I think that kind of reiterates what Casey said. We can handle it.
All right.
Okay. I have a question. It says it was difficult to see the map slide details. Will these be available for download? And I cannot seem to find them on the FAA website. Okay, the boards are not on the FAA website, but the workshop is, as we said, is being recorded, and you can view those on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter after this program is completed here. So what is the reason for the outreach meeting? Well, you know, as I said at the very beginning in my introduction, the purpose of the workshop today is to give the public an opportunity to see what we're doing in advance and see how these new procedures, number one, understand these procedures are a lot more precise, see how they're going to work. And if you have any questions, we wanted to have people available to answer questions on what you have seen. So that's why we are here.
I think the other reason to add to that, Joe, is also by being more efficient and more effective in the airspace from an environmental standpoint, you're going to reduce the emissions because of the way you're flying, the different approaches and so forth, and you're going to reduce noise overall.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. You know, that's a very, very important point to make, because we know that a lot of the participants here today and the general public are very interested in that. It's just one of the things we have to really keep our eye on. So, how has the FAA, or how has the FAA made changes like this at other airports? Well, and have they made them? I'm going to go to you, Marissa, for that.
Sure. Yes, a lot of the larger airports have already started to make these changes to these satellite-based procedures. And so St. Louis has them, your Chicago's, Atlanta's, New York's, LA. They already have them. So we're in the middle. We're kind of a mid-tier airport. So we're in the middle of the changes. And so, yes, there are lots of other airports that are already doing the procedures.
Okay, thanks, Marissa. Another one, a little more technical though here for you. To use a new system, will an IFR rating be required?
So yes, so to explain, IFR is Instrument Flight Rules. And so what these new procedures will mainly be for IFR pilots that are coming into Kansas City International specifically, and some of our larger airports here in our airspace, like downtown. If you fly VFR or visual flight rules, you probably won't use these procedures. Not probably, you won't use the procedures if you're coming in VFR. But they don't go to all of the airports, all of the satellite airports in our airspace, just our major airports.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Marissa. So my current understanding is that there will be no changes that impact noise or flight paths, and that the current study from 2009 is unchanged. Residents should not notice any change in noise. They also should not notice any increased flight traffic. Is that correct? Okay, well, I'm going to go start with Bill, and then we'll go to the other panelists.
Thank you, Joe. The noise study we conducted showed no changes in noise when implementing the new procedures. We also don't expect to see an increase in operations from implementing the new procedures.
But as we did here, we sure hope to have an increase in operations, don't we, Ian?
Yeah, the only way you'll actually see an increase in the number of operations is, as Trey said, is if the airlines are any new entrants into our market have new flights and add new flights. If the schedules stay the same, you will not see any increased operations.
No, that's correct. Absolutely.
But there's an advantage. I mean, by adding new flights, hopefully we can make sure that the fares in and out of Kansas City are lower, so you can get more people flying.
There you go. Another question, how is the downtown airport being incorporated into these arrivals? When MCI lands to the west and the best runway at MKC is 19, how will MKC traffic be handled? I'm going to give that to Marissa.
Okay, so we're going to handle the approaches exactly how we handle them now. Sometimes we're landing to the west at MCI and downtown's preferred runway is to the south. So ultimately, and Casey or Ryan can help me out with this, we have to make sure we have enough separation between the aircraft as they come in and do their approaches into the separate airport. So we're going to keep all of the airplanes separated as we normally would. Ultimately, beginning in May, these arrivals are going to come to MCI. So if you're flying into MCI, probably in a jet or some sort of air taxi or some sort of business jet, then you'll probably fly the arrivals. But we're going to keep the aircraft separated as we normally do.
Thank you. Here's Casey, here's a question I'm going to pass on to you. It says, I joined late and missed the video. Will you be implementing optimized descent paths in the near future to reduce fuel consumption and reduce noise further from the airport?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so that's exactly what these new procedures are going to implement, the OPD or the optimized descent paths. So pretty much near idle descent, helping reduce those carbon emissions.
Okay. Yes, that's absolutely right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I have been nominated to attend this by my homeowners association. I've had that happen to me before too. And any answer we get back to my, well, we get this right. And any answers we'll get back to my neighbors as well. We are located near Zona Rosa, that's zip code, I guess, 64153, between Northwest Berry Road and I-29 and 152 Highway. My question is, will these changes impact noise over the residential areas or create new flight paths? Ryan?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so I don't live far from there myself, so hello, neighbor. I will say, as it relates to these new procedures, it will not change based off of what we currently do. There'll be no changes. So if an airplane flies over your house now, it'll continue to fly over in the same manner it has, probably every other day for the last however long you've lived in that house. So this procedure does not change that at all. No.
Okay. Well, here's another flight path question, actually. For the people that live in the community around MCI, will the flight patterns change from what they see now? So, for example, would a community experience more or fewer planes flying over their neighborhood due to this change? Casey?
Yeah, sure, Joe. So just to echo what Ryan said, if a plane flies over your house today, then it will continue to do with these new procedures. To oversimplify the new procedures, they're going to fly the same lateral path as they do today. Just the method in which they do that's going to change, but they'll fly the exact same routes, same altitudes as they do today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Marissa, here's a question about visual approaches. Will FAA favor the use of these procedures for noise and environmental concerns over the visual approaches?
Okay, so as far as air traffic is concerned, I don't know that we'll favor these RMP approaches. We are going to continue to use visual approaches, and there is a slight difference between an arrival, which are being updated to the satellite-based procedures, which is just transitioning from the en route portion of the flight to the approach portion, and the actual approach, which is, the final 20 miles or so to get to the runway to land. So no, we will still use visual approaches. We will use instrument approaches. It just depends on the day and the traffic and the needs of the controller and everything else that's going on.
Okay. So this question keeps sort of coming up in different ways, and I'm not sure exactly why. I wonder if people are wanting more traffic. I hope that's the reason. But are you putting in these procedures so Kansas City can operate more flights? And I think a couple of you have been answering that question. So let's just do it again. We'll start with Ryan.
Oh, no, the procedures themselves aren't put in to, accommodate more flights in the interest of the question.
Okay. Ian?
And I'm going to go back a little bit here. I'm sorry, Joe.
I'm sorry.
So, and I'll go back to just the airspace design itself. So the airspace design as it is today was designed 20, 25, 30 years ago. And this, for some of us, or some of you maybe, will remember the days of TWA and Brana flying in here. And that was the busiest time air traffic wise that this airport had ever seen. Obviously, since that time, over the last probably 10 years more than anything else, we've seen a decline in the amount of air traffic that's in our airspace. Again, not saying that we aren't able to accommodate more traffic in the airspace. And certainly for myself and the controllers, we are compensated based off of the amount of traffic that's in the airspace. So always, just like anybody else, we would like to be compensated as much as we possibly can, but it's based off of the volume. So we're certainly willing and able and want the traffic to return to those levels as they once were. But however, for the purposes of this workshop and this question, no, they were not developed to accommodate, a higher volume right now.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else want to add to that?
Sure, Joe. I know what I'll say. I echo what Ryan said. I mean, the airspace and the use of the airspace, it has the capability to accept more aircraft in it, but it will be a factor of our marketing department and the aviation department working with the airlines and the air carriers, and the ability to create more markets will be what will determine whether or not there will be more aircraft coming in and out of Kansas City. It's not the airspace and these new navigational aids and the replacement of the old aids does not automatically increase or decrease the amount of aircraft flying in and out of Kansas City.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. So the question is, when will these procedures, when are they scheduled to start? Well, I could get the easy, I'll answer the easy question. They're scheduled to be published in the summer of 2022, and that's when they're going to start, summer 2022. Let's see. Okay, well, Ryan, does this mean that Raymer 7, Jayhawk 6, Tiger 6, these arrivals are going away?
Yes, it does. The conventional arrivals as they were before will no longer exist. These new ones will take the place of those, yes.
Okay. Again, if you have questions, folks, I just remind you to please put them in the Q&A for the panel, and we'll keep going as long as you have questions. Wow, we got 60 minutes. So, this is a kind of an interesting question. A lot of you might have a perspective on this. Are airplanes getting louder or quieter? I want to start with Trey.
Thanks, Joe. Historically, over the evolution of our fleet and our current fleet plans as they exist today, airplanes are by and large getting quieter. And what I mean by that is, we started with obviously 737-200 aircraft that were considerably more noisy than the vast majority of our fleet as it sits today, which is the next generation 737s. And then our fleet plans include more incorporation of MAX aircraft, which are fairly and significantly quieter. So the trend is definitely in a more quiet direction.
Yeah, Bill, that's your business, isn't it?
It is, Joe. As Trey said, the newer aircraft are becoming more efficient and quieter. The FAA's Office of Environmental and Energy has worked for more than 50 years with the air carriers and the manufacturers to reduce noise at the source, the aircraft engines. Extensive information is available at FAA.gov and search for the Office of Environment and Energy.
Okay.
And Joe, I would add one other thing and a plug also for the Office of Environment and Energy. In terms of research, they've worked with NASA and not only in engine manufacturing and stuff, but also in the actual design of the actual aircraft. And as Trey would echo, in the actual design, when you look at some of these wingtips and different things that have gone into the actual designs of aircraft, they're all used to make the aircraft quieter and reduce noise flow over the wings and so forth, which gives you a quieter sounding aircraft on approaches and or departures.
Yeah, well, thanks. You know, somebody brought up Braniff and TWA and a long time ago. So those folks probably remember those old water wagons taking off out of here too. You want to talk about loud, right? So we've been talking about arrival procedures. Are there going to be any changes to the departure paths? Casey?
Sure, Joe. Nope. The departure paths will remain the same as they are today. So that's the short and sweet of it.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, Ryan, this is another general aviation question. Will the new route assignments affect general aviation?
No, Joe, they won't. General aviation will receive the same services that they receive today. You know, whether it's, you know, VFR flight following from point A to point B, you know, practice approaches within our airspace, what have you. Those services will continually, will always be provided to anyone and everyone that wants it. So no, they won't be affected by that at all.
No, thank you very much. We have a safety question, and we've been talking about this a little bit before, but it looks like we should have a little bit more detail. How will these satellite procedures enhance and improve safety? Marissa, would you tackle that one?
Sure. So what we currently have, the ground-based navigation aids that we have are ground-based. So they could be flooded. They could have issues with nature and overgrowth or any issues that happen here on the ground, where satellites, I know it sounds silly, are up in space. And so the satellite-based procedures provide aircraft and air traffic controller with precise and predictable flight paths. So regardless of weather conditions or things that are happening, it's a little bit safer because it's a little bit more precise. We know exactly where the aircraft are.
And Joe, I'll just piggyback off that real quick. And there's been a couple questions regarding safety, and I just want to, you know, kind of be very clear on this. And I'll kind of share what the FAA's motto is, and that we operate, and I think it was alluded to earlier, the safest and most efficient airspace system in all the world, and that's undeniable and undebatable. You know, as it relates to safety, anytime safety is compromised, the FAA is going to turn a critical eye to that and make sure that safety never, you know, reverts back to something that it was before. I think what we're talking about here is more the efficient piece. You know, as technology changes throughout the world, the FAA is going to try to be at the forefront of adopting some of that technology to ensure that not only is safety paramount, but we are also efficient as well in making sure that we get, you know, our customers from point A to point B as quickly and certainly as safely as we possibly can.
You know, thank you for saying that. That has been our motto, and we do live that motto.
And then, Joe, can I just say one more thing? Because
Absolutely.
Ryan was saying something about technology, and that kind of reminded me. What we're doing is a technology upgrade. It's like the ground-based navigations are like a BlackBerry phone, and the satellite procedures are an iPhone. And could we use a BlackBerry right now? Yes. Do you want to? Probably not. I'd rather have an iPhone. So it's a technology upgrade.
All right. Well, so as long as we're chatting about this, I have a question right on the lines. What if the satellite system or network goes down? What kind of backup do we have? What kind of backup do we have? Ryan?
So kind of like I said earlier, safety is paramount. With a multitude of equipment that we work with on a day-to-day basis, there's redundancy set in. There's typically a backup to the backup, and even times there's a backup to that backup. So there'll be redundancies involved with anything that we work with to ensure that if something happens or goes down, we have a contingency plan in place to ensure that, again, that safety piece and that efficiency piece is not affected. And really, more often than not, is unnoticeable to the customers that we serve.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, let me see here. This is an interesting question. Actually, I had this question myself a few months ago. Can you show the board? I think we can show a board. Can you show the board with arrivals and explain what the yellow area is? Planes will still fly. Will planes still fly in this area? Can we show that board? We can.
Yeah, Joe, I'll take this one. So that yellow area is really just going to be used only if the air traffic controller takes an aircraft off of the arrival. So those orange paths. So we do that for a multitude of reasons: weather, parachute jumping to the west, southwest of the airport. Maybe if we're trying to make a different sequence, it could be a multitude of reasons, but those are usually the general, the most common reasons.
So generally, we're going to be in the orange, though, right?
Yep, orange, and then, like I said, weather, or just traffic. Those yellow areas will be used.
Good. Okay, thank you. Let's see again. Wait for my. Okay, there's a question here. The words arrival and approach were used. What's the difference? Marissa?
Sure. So as far as air traffic is concerned, there are 3 separate phases of flight that an aircraft could be in. So the departures are obviously when they're departing, when they take off one runway in an airport, and then they transition to the en route part of the flight, which is when they're in level flight and they're transitioning from one airport and airspace to their destination. And so the arrival is when they are transitioning out of the en route portion of flight and preparing to land the aircraft. So the procedures that are changing are the standard terminal arrival routes, which is our arrivals that are coming in to our airports as aircraft are preparing to land. Now, an approach is, like I said, the final 20 miles that an aircraft and a pilot take to land and arrive at their destination airport. So an approach could be a visual approach, which means the pilot sees the airport and they land visually, or they could run an instrument approach, which means they're using their instrumentation to land the aircraft at their destination airport.
Okay. There's kind of a related question to that. Will these routes impede on any of the general aviation airport airspace? Casey and Marissa, that's your area again.
Yeah, no, they won't. Like we mentioned earlier, the Bravo won't change. So we won't be affecting any of the satellite airports like Mosby, Lee Summit, Leavenworth. So we'll handle traffic into there just like we do today. The only path that will be new is when we're east or west flow for MCI arrivals, they'll actually have a designated path instead of vectors. Like if you're on the Jayhawk, usually the arrival ends at Jayhawk, but now it'll be, you get a path all the way to the downward, which would be nice for controllers and pilots.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump on that?
No, Casey's absolutely correct. No, we need to be able to handle our general aviation airports and our general aviation traffic as normal.
Thank you. So here's a good question. I think this is very interesting too. Not related to arrivals, but since you have the right people on the call, will Kansas MCI still be available for touch and goes?
Of course.
And they say they're a lot of fun. They like them. It's a lot of fun. So
yeah, and I'll just say, and this is no offense to Trey, obviously, but those big airliners ain't no fun sometimes, and a lot of us cut our teeth in air traffic. In those smaller towers with VFR pattern traffic coming in and out, it just adds another, little something different for us. So yeah, Absolutely. Come on in. We'll have a ball also.
I do
There
have
you
one. I do have one request. If you're going to do multiple options, let me know before you do it.
There you go.
And we're open 24 hours. So
That's
if
true.
you're nervous, if you don't want to come in with the big jets, then you can come in at 2 o'clock in the morning and we'll be here.
Looks like everybody likes to have fun, don't they? All right, can these procedures be used in all types of weather? Do thunderstorms affect any the use of these procedures? Casey, you're the guy there.
Yeah, sure. Nope. So you can fly the procedures. I mean, if that procedure is going to take you through a thunderstorm, then obviously you don't want to go through that. So you'll get a vector around that weather, but that will not, the weather won't impede the signal you can receive, to the airplane from the satellite.
Okay, good, thanks. So here's a question, a little more explanation available. We'll try to do this for you. How do satellite-based procedures enhance safety? Okay, so Ryan.
Sure. So I think first and foremost, when you're talking about the enhancement in safety, it kind of can be broken down into an extremely granular state, is what I'll say. I'm not going to go real deep, but I will say first and foremost, one of the things that we try to do is eliminate two-way radio communication between us and the pilots as much as we possibly can. As you can imagine, when you have a multiple aircraft on the frequency at one time, it enhances safety that you only have to say one thing or only have to say something once. So this kind of eliminates some of that two-way radio communication. Certainly it'll decrease the controller workload at times when they are a little bit busier, because like we've already talked about, it gives that optimized profile descent where it's a predictable path all the way to the airport, which helps us out a lot. So there's a multitude of reasons of why it enhances safety. Those are just to name a few. I could probably go on for another 20 minutes. That's probably the best way to answer it right now.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you. Are there any aircraft that are not equipped to fly these new procedures? And then what routes will these non-equipped aircraft fly? So that's interesting. Marissa?
I'll let Trey answer about which aircraft are equipped and which are not, but I'm going to say yes, there are aircraft that are not equipped to fly these satellite-based procedures. And we welcome any type of aircraft here at MCI. So even if you're not equipped, we will separate you from these arrivals and get you into MCI and get you landed. So it shouldn't be an issue if your aircraft is not equipped.
Trey?
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. And you're correct. I'm sure there are aircraft that are not equipped. I can't speak to that, on behalf of anybody else's company or any GA traffic. But as far as our company is concerned, our fleet is fully equipped to fly these new procedures.
Okay. So ongoing in this area, are these changes permanent or could the routes change again in the future? Marissa?
So they are designed to be permanent. As with everything, as technology changes and new things become available, we would reevaluate them. But the process for implementing these new procedures has taken a lot of time. As you can see, it's taken a lot of stakeholders and a lot of different input from people. And so these are not procedures that we just throw up and say, oh, we're going to do something different. So they could change, but they are planned to be permanent.
Okay. What is the effect of weather on the use of these procedures? I'm going to go Casey and Trey both on this, I think, because get two views.
Yeah, sure. Just like we handle weather today, we'll handle it with the new procedures whenever they come out. So it just depends. It's a case-by-case basis. Depends where the weather's at, what the winds align to. It could be a whole host of things, but if we have to vector them off the arrival, then that's what we'll do. Just whatever gets the aircraft down safely.
You know, it's, well, Trey, you're actually flying the thing during weather.
Well, from a procedure standpoint, the procedure works very well and they stay intact. But for safety of flight and the comfort of our customers, if we do see weather along one of these procedures, we will be coordinating with air traffic to come off the procedure and obviously go around any weather.
Yeah, thank you. So will these airplanes fly these procedures when the new terminal is opened? So, Ryan?
So I just want to be clear that these procedures weren't developed because of the new terminal. They were developed independently from the new terminal opening in that first quarter of 2023. So they're not dependent on the new terminal project. They are independent on their own and were developed that way, probably even before, the new terminal was even voted on, to be honest with you. These have been in conversation for many years. And they are independent of that project altogether.
Okay. Yeah, Ian, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Ryan says, and none of the new terminal has nothing to do with it. The airfield is not changing. The alignment of the runways and so forth are not changing. And these procedures were an enhancement and an upgrade to what was existing there. And it was being studied for a long period of time. So therefore, they had nothing to do with, the new terminal at all.
Okay. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to you, Ryan, on this one. Is what are the backups to these procedures in case there is an outage?
Sure. So like I alluded to a couple of questions ago, I can't remember exactly how long ago it was, but anyway, we have redundancies built into every system that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. There's typically one, if not two. Sometimes there's even three. In the instances that we get to the final redundancy and that's not available, we have contingency plans. That's our, last possible step in dealing with any outage or any issue that we have. And those contingency plans are practiced yearly and refreshed yearly in order to ensure that if and when those situations come up, that we're ready for it and can navigate those issues regardless of what the issues are. So. Like I said, redundancies and contingency plans, and that maintains the safety of the NAS, the National Airspace System.
Thank you. So how will these procedures affect Kansas City downtown airport? I think we've mentioned that before, but Casey, you and Marissa want to tackle that again? One of you?
Yes. The new RNAV arrivals are for MCI arrivals only. So the downtown airport arrivals will probably get more of a vector, I would assume, but it'll be handled by a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so so we're really getting a little bit into the weeds, but this is good. This is great, actually. What are ground-based procedures, and what do you mean by satellite-based procedures? Marissa, why don't you talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. So a ground-based procedure is based off a navigational aid that is located on the ground. So our Bramer arrival comes from the Bramer VOR, which I believe is in Bramer, Missouri. Is there a Bramer, Missouri? So there is an actual, not facility, but there's a piece of equipment that is on the ground, and they're spread out all over the country that pilots navigate from. And so satellite-based procedures use satellite-based GPS. And what they do is they pinpoint or triangulate a point, an imaginary point in the sky that an aircraft can fly to using lat longs.
Yeah,
So
kind
those
of like I said in the first question we have, a lot of this is based off that line of sight. If there's an obstruction in that line of sight from point A to point B, you're going to have some disruption. This kind of alleviates any of that disruption because it's literally coming from the sky as opposed to that that horizontal line, if you will.
Okay.
Or vertical line, excuse me.
There you go. All right. I think this question is going to need the board again, and maybe a little more explanation too, because we're using acronyms. It looks like these stars tie into an approach, but the graphic shows an area of dispersion. Why can't all of aircraft stay on the procedure? Casey, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So the approach they tie into is going to be the R&Ps, but the reason why all aircraft can't stay on the that approach is just for sequencing, really. That's the main reason. Sometimes there's weather, like we said earlier, they have a vector off the arrival, but really, if you got a tie, someone's got to be second.
Okay. Pretty much that simple, right?
Yep, that pretty much.
Okay. Well, so folks, that was our last question, actually. And so I want to tell you what, we're going to bring our workshop to an end. I want to thank all of you for attending today. I want to thank the panelists for helping us out. We had some really, really good questions. Our specialists, I think they got into detail. It sounded like maybe a little bit too much detail because we kept going back over it, but that's all good. In case you want, we have one more workshop tomorrow at 6 p.m. on the same subject. So if you want to go back, come back, learn a little bit more, or maybe ask more questions, we're really welcome you. So thank you very much for joining us today. And this will be the end of our workshop.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.